Hey everybody, Quantum here, and in this video we're going to be wrapping up our review of all of the inks in Reign of Jafar, of course ending it with steel. And just as a quick reminder, all of the dual inks were in-depth reviewed during the inks that they first showed up in. So for example, the very first review we did was Amber cards, and we reviewed the Amber Steel cards in that video. I will quickly go over what I think are interesting dual ink cards to keep an eye on for this set, but there are a lot of just generic steel stuff, so this video will be pretty quick because I'm not going to spend too much time on what I think is just not going to be relevant for constructed. I will comment on things that may be good in draft, but draft isn't really my expertise. I will say before we get started that I do think steel is the winner out of this set. I think it just has the best generic cards overall and some of the best dual inks, and we'll cover that as well. It doesn't mean the other inks are bad or doesn't have very strong cards, or that steel is going to be the meta-defining ink of this metagame that we're about to approach into. It just means that they just have solid cards, in my opinion, the best cards out of the whole set. So again, just a personal opinion, but let's go ahead and get started. Again, going to speed through a lot of these and focus on what I think is actually good. So first up, I'm not even going to try to pronounce this name, but a 7-cost inkable 7/7 that quests for 3. Actually half decent, but if I was going to play a big body like this and construct it, I'd probably look at playing something like the new Radigan in Sapphire that has Ward, even though it does have the limitation of needing to ink, or otherwise it banishes itself. But it does quest for 4. It's a 6/7. It costs 1 more ink, but it has Ward. So again, depending on what ink pairings you're playing, you're probably not playing something this expensive and generic in anything other than Sapphire Steel, and for that reason, it's going to be a pass, but probably very good in draft. Next up, we got Bobby, a 4/2 bodyguard. That's a 3-cost inkable, so an interesting stat line there. I don't know if we have any high strength bodyguards like this really for this cost, so definitely interesting to have this card in your card pool. Next up, you got Magic Carpet, Phantom Rug. This is one of the new illusion cards, a 3-cost inkable overstatted 2/4 body that quests for 2 and gives challenger +1 to illusion. So if you're building an illusion deck, it might be worth taking a look at this card and adding it in as an addition. Prince Ahmed, a 2-cost inkable 2/2 that quests for 1. When you play this character, you may exert Chosen Princess. Not anything that is relevant. Dump Truck is an interesting one. There were some people that were interested in this, saying that, you know, it could be something that is useful. I don't really see it unless you actually value the body here, but to me, I look at this and say I'd rather just play Fire the Cannons because the 2 damage that deals is more valuable than the 1 damage that this deals while being a body that may quest for 1, right? So that's my take on it. I could be interpreting that wrong. Let me know if you think anything else of it, but I just don't think it's too relevant right now. We've got the reprint of Captain Hook, which is good since we do have a pretty decent Captain Hook dual ink Emerald Steel card. I've already talked about this before, but being a 5-cost that shifts for 3 and inkable, a 4/5 stat line, quest for 2, and a pretty nice ability that gives resist +2 and strength +2 if you are able to damage an opponent's character is very, very good. If Emerald Steel Pirates ever become a thing, mainly I'm looking at after rotation, this is definitely going to be a card you're going to want to play, and you're definitely going to want to wish, or you'll wish that you had the 1-drop Captain Hook, and well, you don't have to wish because, hey, you got a reprint of it in this set. Next up, you've got General Lee, head of the Imperial Army, a 3-cost inkable 2/4 with resist 1 and quest for 1. Nothing to write home about there. A Monterey Jack 5-cost inkable 4/5 with bodyguard that quests for 2. Kind of interesting. We've seen the progression of like Maximus and Amber, which was a 5-cost inkable 4/5 quest for 1 with support and bodyguard, and that was a super rare. This is now a common. This is an interesting card. You know, being a 2-quester is nice, but I don't think this does enough to displace Chenpo for the 4/7 stat line. It's probably just a little bit too valuable to have that extra bit of willpower. Next up, we've got an interesting, during your turn, this character gains evasive card in Genie, Satisfied Dragon. This is a 3-cost inkable 3/4 body, so you get the extra point on willpower while also getting the evasive ability during your turn, and it also can quest for 1. So this one's not bad, but again, at the 3-cost slot for most decks, you're going to have more valuable things to play, but this is an interesting card that could see some use in the future. Toby Turtle, a 2-cost inkable 0/4, and when this character is exerted, it gains resist +1, and it also quests for 1. So not anything I see relevant there because you're going to want this thing to have bodyguard to protect your other things, and it doesn't, so I would just end up passing on it. Ariana, Queen of Corona, a 5-cost Ariana, oh, hopefully I'm saying that right. 5-cost inkable 5/5 quest for 2, so similar to this one here, but less cost. But I don't think there's anything to write home about on these generic cards. Probably good for draft though. Zipper, a 3-cost inkable 2/4. That is, if you have a character named Monterey Jack in play, you pay 1 less to play this character, and it has Burst of Speed, another during your turn. This character gains evasive and it quests for 1. Next up, you've got Khan Warhorse, a 4-cost inkable 2/7 that quests for 1, so nothing significant there. Vinny the Green Pigeon, a 1/4 that says during an opponent's turn, whenever one of your other characters is banished, so not itself, you're able to gain 1 lore, and it also quests for 1. The Iago here, in my opinion, is one of the more interesting cards because it doesn't have evasive, and it still is able to protect itself from being challenged. And what's interesting about this is, as a 4-cost 3/3 that quests for 2, if you do have an exerted evasive character, your evasive may not be able to be challenged because of the evasive ability, and then this card may not be able to be challenged. So you get a pretty well-rounded card that quests for 2 that has some inherent built-in protection, as long as you can put exerted stuff into play, right? And bodyguards kind of is redundant, even though those are the things that come into play exerted. But yeah, there's some interesting stuff you can do with this, like in Ruby Steel, like the Tinkerbell will exert stuff for you when you play it to gain 2 lore that's over 5 strength, and that can automatically protect the Iago. But I guess if you're doing that, you already have Tinkerbell in play, unless you play the Tinkerbell and the 5 strength character at the same time. So I mean, yeah, this is just off the top of my head here, some janky combos, but this card I think is worth looking at, and because in some Steel decks, the 4-drop slot can be hard to fill sometimes, and this is a card that might be worth looking at. So if it's like 30 cents for a copy, I'll definitely be picking up a playset for like $1, right? Like $1.20 or whatever. Like, why not? Next up, you got Nathaniel Flint, a 2-cost 3/3. So again, shades of Mr. Smee in terms of the stat line, questing for 2 as well. So I think this is a good indication that they're not going to reprint Mr. Smee, realizing how broken that card is. But you can't play this character unless an opposing character was damaged this turn. So it is a pirate. It's a captain, it's an alien, it's a villain. It's got a lot of attributes here, which makes it very interesting. It's very expensive too, but I don't see this card being super relevant because the odds you're playing this on 2 is probably pretty slim, because when you ink for turn on 2, you're not going to have anything left over to like play like a Fire the Cannons or something. Not really a song to sing, obviously, unless you have like Cinderella 1-drop, and then you can sing Storm or something. There's no 1-cost song that damages stuff, I don't think. And so you're not really playing this on curve unless you can challenge with your 1-drop, which means this is only good if you're on the draw, because your opponent has to play first and you play your 1-drop, then they exert their 1-drop, so your 1-drop can challenge it, but then you probably lose your 1-drop, because why would they quest with their 1-drop or do something with their 1-drop to turn it sideways to just lose it, right? So it's a weird card. There's just so many awkward interactions. I just don't see it with this card right now, but I'm sure there are some interesting combos that need to be explored. I don't think it's worth that price just for its use right now, but maybe after rotation it does change in terms of its viability. Next up, we've got Vincenzo Santorini, a 7-cost inkable 2/8 that quests for 3. When you play this character, you may deal 3 damage to chosen character. Pretty good ability, good quest, a lot of willpower, but it does cost 7. But it is inkable, and maybe in like a ramp Sapphire Steel, like top end heavy deck, you could maybe look at a card like this. It might be decent for that reason. Again, 30 cents. Why not just pick up 2 or some copies for 60 cents? Like, why not, right? Yeah, just always look for value in these things, guys, right? Because you never know what cards might be good. And like, with Iagos, I picked them up for 25 cents, and then they spiked up to like $7-8, right? Because again, you can just see value in some cards. When cards are this cheap, right? Or I forgo buying a coffee one day, is $5 if that's what you spend on a coffee, let's say, and I pick up a couple of play sets of really cheap rares that might end up having some crazy good synergy in the future, or even with what people discover with combos later on. One of the reasons I think Steel is going to be the best ink in the set is because of this new Namari. I think this is what Ravensburger wanted Beast Tragic Hero to originally be, but obviously Beast Tragic Hero just draws. And they've indicated, because of the Fortisphere ban, they want Steel to be the draw and discard ink, right? And this Namari fits that bill. When you play this character at the start of your turn, you may draw a card, then choose and discard a card. This is a very relevant ability. It can help filter your hand, which is extremely important with steel, because a lot of the time with steel, you're running like, because it's a damage ink, there are a lot of uninkable cards that you just not have to run, but you want to run, because that's why you're running steel, is to run these damage oriented cards, let the Storm Rage on, things like that. How bad does it feel when you have multiple whole new worlds, that kind of thing, right? But now you can filter your hand with a card like this and discard those extra uninkable copies, make your hand a little bit more playable, ink for turns and stuff, so that you can get the high value off of those uninkable cards, right? You're not bricked with those cards in your hand. And then she also kind of cannibalizes her own ability, if that's the right word or term, but she gets +1 strength for each card in your discard. So as she's drawing and discarding, you're gaining +1 strength. And so this card comes down and can be like a 10-5. It can be really, really strong. And then depending on what you're pairing this with, immediately Amber or Sapphire come to mind, because while healing isn't really something that you focus on in this game, this is a card where I think you want to consistently challenge with it, or keep turning it sideways, forcing your opponent to run into it. And if you're the one challenging and you have damage on this card, you want to heal it up so you get extra value, right? You're a 10-5, let's say. You're taking out anything that this runs itself into, and then you're dropping a Rapunzel, you're dropping a Baymax, you're healing it up, you're getting lore or drawing cards as a result. It's just like you're synergizing off of this thing. I think this is the best legendary in the set, and I picked up 4 already myself. So yeah, a lot of, and again, if you've seen my videos, gameplay videos, Amber Steel, I'm playing it. Sapphire Steel, I'm playing it, that kind of thing. The second legendary, though, I'm going to say I don't think is anything, which is crazy to see that it's worth more than the Namari. I don't know if I'm missing something here, but as a 10 cost uninkable, for me, this is just something that is a very big liability to play. It is very good, though. It's a 10-10 with 5 quest, and it has bodyguard. So your opponent's going to have to get this off the board somehow in order to get to the rest of your board. And it's not going to be easy to deal with it. You're going to either lose a lot of characters running stuff into it, or, you're just going to have to Dragon Fire or be prepared, or do something crazy to get this off the board. But you're losing a lot of things in the process, or sacrificing a lot. But again, it did cost a lot to play. And you have to deal with it because it quests for 5. When you do deal with it, you're losing your whole board most likely anyways. When this character is banished, deal 5 damage to each opposing character only, so not even your own. It's effectively a board wipe, but it's very expensive. In Sapphire Steel, would you play this? I don't even think you would. I think it's just too expensive, right? Other decks are going to run you over by the time you even get up there. But maybe if Hiram was still around, yeah. But if Hiram was still around, maybe that card would be actually kind of broken, because you could continually ramp very aggressively. But yeah, for me right now, I just don't see it. I could eat my words on that one. It is worth more than the Amari right now somehow, which is crazy to me. But, I've called these things before and turned out to be right, with like Clarabelle and stuff, let's say, in the past. And then we saw what happened with Clarabelle. I'll be interested to see if I come back to this video. I'll probably make a short out of this little clip and be like, you remember when I told you guys, Namari was going to be the best? And I couldn't believe that Mickey Mouse was higher than Namari. And then you just see Namari shoot up, and then this card just dropped to nothing. Not saying that that's going to happen, but it would be funny if it did. Anyways, next up, we've got Stitch, Alien Troublemaker. This card I was actually just messing around with, and I do like this card, actually. A 4-cost inkable 3/4. So, just off the stats, I'm like, I don't like this card. But then actually playing with it, this card does fill a gap, similar to what I mentioned with the Iago, and being a 4-cost inkable card in steel that might be worth taking a look at, because whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, you may draw a card and gain a lore. The big thing there is drawing a card. It is a hero, so you can combo it with certain things that boost it up. Not that you would, but like Imperial Bow, One Last Hope, but it does have some of those inherent synergies built in. And particularly in Ruby Steel and stuff like that, a card like this does fit a pretty good niche. It's not really so oppressive that it's good, like Maui Shark, where it's going to stop your opponent from turning stuff sideways. But you can definitely get some good value off of this card, and maybe even draw 2 cards, gain 2 lore off of clearing off characters on the opponent's end, right? Depending on how you combo this up with other strength boosting stuff, for example. So yeah, really interesting card. It is a little expensive. I would hope to see this card drop to less than $1 each. before I grab mine. But yeah, very good. Not very good, but like a very interesting card. All right, next up we've got Desperate Plan. This one is very interesting. I do think this is a good card, and I do think it's one of the cards that certain steel decks will look to play, especially because Hiram is banned now for like Sapphire Steel, let's say. A 3-cost uninkable action, so you have to hard cast it, and you have to have no cards in your hand to draw 3. If you do have cards in your hand, so if you have 2 copies of this and you can't get rid of the other one, this is where like playing that Namari helps to like draw and discard the extra copies. You would choose and discard those cards and then draw that many. So if you have 4 cards in your hand and you play this, you can choose to discard 3 cards and then draw 3. That's really bad because you pay 3 to go -1. Yes, you filter your hand a little bit, but that's really bad. Obviously, where you get the value off of this, you have to have nothing in your hand. And when you have nothing in your hand, this card becomes absolutely cracked. I shouldn't say cracked, but it's very good. Similar to what Doc was, right? And Docs were like, I don't know, $2 when they first came out or something. And it's a body, but you discard your hand and you draw 2. It doesn't have the same restriction as this. This has a much heftier restriction because if you have anything in your hand when you play this, you cannot just draw up to 3, right? Like till you have up to 3 cards in your hand. You have to have nothing in your hand when you play this to draw the 3. So it's not as versatile as Doc, because Doc, you saw people were pitching sometimes 3 cards, 2 cards, 1 card, no cards, and just drawing a fresh 2. You can't do that with this, but this is still a very good card. It's probably worth that price. I'm not picking it up at this price just because I want to see if it drops a little bit more, especially the foils. But I do think that this is something, especially post rotation, that anything that draws cards, guys, like I keep saying, it's worth looking at. Again, hopefully we can see this card come down a little bit. This is release day. I'm making this video on release day, so prices are still going to be adjusted. And I think that cards will come down until we start seeing what's really worth the money in the meta. Next up, we've got Beyond the Horizon. So good to see that the comments have come, or the non-foil has come down. I guess I'll talk about it because I've talked about this a lot in like just deck list videos and stuff. I do think this foil is going to be worth a lot, though. I've already picked up 8 copies myself of the foil. And just keep in mind that the regular non-foil is also in a starter deck, I believe, in the steel starter deck for this set. So it's going to be an accessible card regardless. But this card is probably the best card in the set, at least on the surface. It seems that way. And I say that because it's the card that off the hop looks to have the most meta impact. The meta might warp around this card. It'll probably develop out of that stage, but at the very beginning, this card just does an insane amount of work with some of the Emerald Steel and Amber Steel lists. It is very powerful. There are a lot of people cooking up ways to combat this card, and I think similar to what we had in the Sapphire Hiram meta, there will be decks that can play around this effect and deal with what this setup wants to do. The issue is, and I've talked about this, is Emerald Steel and Amber Steel in particular, and we'll use those 2 shells as the example. They're very strong decks in and out their own right without this card being introduced. And I talked about this in my Amber Steel deck profile for members, where this card just adds that extra layer of like, oh, in addition to, doing everything that Steel Song wants to do, right? Clearing your board, singing songs to gain advantage, putting you on like, no cards or just out racing you. I now also have the ability to, let's say like with the Ruby Amethyst matchup, which is a classic match, right? It's El Clasico for Lorcana. It's ever since set 1, right? Ruby Amethyst versus Amber Steel Song. Ruby Amethyst would hang its hat on, I always have cards in my hand, because even if you Whole New World me, I'm still drawing a fresh 7. Like, yeah, you may be cleaning up my board, but all I need to do is survive long enough to get to that Be Prepared, and then the tables turn. Then I wipe your board, and then I'm the one with the resources to continue to develop. With Beyond the Horizon, you lose that. With Beyond the Horizon, you can say, well, as a Ruby Amethyst player, you might be playing to have 6, 7, 8 cards in your hand at all times, and I may be, running down my resources, clearing your board, getting down to those final, 2, 3 cards. But guess what? You're going to discard those 8 cards, and you're going to draw 3. And now you have no board, and you have 3 cards in your hand. Oh, and by the way, because I'm Amber Steel, I also have discard at my disposal with the Amber cards, and I can play things like Bare Necessities and You Have Forgotten Me to generate even more advantage. Because hey, this is a song, and I can sing it together. I don't need a singer 7. I can use a turn 1 Cinderella, and a turn 2 Troubadour to sing this on turn 3 if I really wanted to. This card is insanely powerful, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with the metagame. I hope Ravensburger doesn't introduce some emergency bans and stuff again. People will adapt to these cards. So just, maybe after rotation it needs to be banned, but don't ban it during the set it was released, or don't ban cards that synergize with it. The exception would be Prince John, but that needs to be banned for other reasons. We're almost done here though. We got Quick Shot, a 2-cost uninkable, deal 1 damage to chosen character, draw a card. The draw card is nice, but 2-cost uninkable for 1 damage, it's just not it. You're basically looking at this as a redraw for 2, which is just, I just wouldn't do it. Next up, you got Hamster Ball. This is an item, a 3-cost uninkable. Exert and pay 1. Chosen character with no damage gains resist +2 until the start of your next turn, meaning it will have it for your opponent's turn. This card is actually pretty interesting and actually good in my opinion. The issue is it is 3 cost and it's uninkable. If it was a 2-cost inkable, it might be too good in that case, but it would definitely see play, I think, then. But because it's a 3-cost uninkable, it's probably too expensive, and you're not taking a turn off to develop that card and trying to proc its ability. Before we wrap up, a couple of the dual inks that I think are more interesting. I think this Rhino might see some play. While this character has no damage, he gains resist +2, and you can heal him in the Amber Steel pairing, so he could be a pretty hefty force. Also, he shifts 2 on top of the 1-cost Rhino, and getting this kind of card out early with resist 2 could be a menace to deal with. The whole illusion archetype has yet to be explored, but if it ends up being decent, both of these cards are good. The issue is they're both 5-cost uninkables, so you really got to make a choice. Do I split the cost here between both of them? Do I even play both of them? Do I just go 4 Jafar or 4 Sultan? Like, what do I do here? That needs to be explored if this deck is even viable. It definitely will be like a decent deck, but I don't know how great it will be. This Captain Hook, really good in my opinion. Probably one of the best dual inks out of the set on the surface in my opinion. And this Maui looks to be really good as well, but we haven't really seen the emergence of an Emerald Steel mid-range yet. You could always just fit this into any Emerald Steel, like even the Emerald Steel discards could play a card like this. The issue is, would you? Is there really room for that? Post-rotation maybe, if the discard variation survives, but for right now, a 3 questing, 4/4 body that has this kind of ability, very, very strong. I think this Coachman, after some testing, is pretty interesting and valuable for Ruby Steel, because you really only need 1 exerted character. It says while 2 or more of your characters of yours, okay, that's interesting wording, are exerted, this character gets +2 strength and gains evasive. So you only need 1 character if you can turn him sideways too. So let's say you go turn 1, Captain Hook, turn 2, the Coachman, and then on turn 3 you go quest with Captain Hook, and then you go challenge with the Coachman. While you're challenging with the Coachman, he's actually gaining the +2 strength and the evasive. I don't know if that actually means that you can challenge an evasive before he's exerted. I think you cannot do that because he's exerting to challenge. So you have to declare your challenge and then he's exerted, which means then he gets the +2 strength and evasive. And why that matters is because what you're challenging into, when the damage actually calculates, he'll have the +2 strength. So if I'm challenging, a 1-drop Daisy Duck, and I went first and I've already exerted my Captain Hook, and that 1/4 Daisy quested on my opponent's turn on turn 1, and then it's like turn 2 I develop this, turn 2 they develop something, quest again quest with the Daisy, right? They develop a 2-drop and then pass back to me. So my turn 3, their Daisy is exerted now because they played it 2 turns ago, right? And I go quest with Hook, challenge Daisy with the Coachman. The Coachman will be a 4/2 into the Daisy Duck, and the Daisy Duck will get banished, right? So yeah, this is an interesting card. I think it's pretty good. I picked up 4 foils at like 70 cents each. So wow, they're sold out of foils, I guess. Kind of going off what I was saying, I guess maybe people are recognizing it's good. This Mushu is also pretty interesting for Sapphire. No, geez, why am I saying Sapphire? For Ruby Steel. Giving everything Rush, Reckless, and Evasive is pretty good. The issue is you need to make sure you're playing things that are adequately, they have enough strength in order to actually make an impact with these abilities. And that's not a problem for Ruby cards. like I remember I was just testing something randomly, and I had this. I played this, and then I played like I think I shifted this on top of the 3-drop Mushu, and then I played a shark, like a turn or two later or something like that, because it was like turn 5, turn 6, and when I played the shark, it gained rush, reckless and evasive. Obviously, it has evasive already, but like it gained rush basically, right? And then I was able to throw it into something. It was pretty funny. So yeah, this card can do a lot depending on what you're playing with it. Like you can just drop a Tinkerbell 6-drop 2, and then it gets rush and evasive. That's kind of nutty, right? The Tinkerbell instantly can throw itself into something, you know, that's evasive, that your opponent thinks is protected. And then Tinkerbell takes that out and then deals 2 damage to something else. Like there's a lot of really interesting things you can do. You can just raw play out the old Mulan that costs 6 as well. If you don't shift her, she'd be a 2/6, so she'd kind of be underwhelming, but then she'd just gain rush and evasive, and then you can still take out something and then deal 2 damage to 2 other things too, right? So there's like a lot of cool little things you can do with this card. You just got to experiment with what cards do I want to give rush to, and proc that challenge right away with, and you can do a lot of damage with it. Light the Fuge didn't feel good for me in testing, but I probably just need to test it more. I didn't like this Arthur at all when I was testing it. I'm probably using it wrong. I need to learn more about utilizing this card properly, probably trying to set it up with the Desperate Plan, but I just didn't like it. I only played it for 2 games, and I was just like, this card seems so bad for me. But again, I'm probably using it wrong. And then aside from that, with the Steel Dual Inks, I think that's pretty much it. So yeah, if you've made it this far in the video, let me know. Thank you again for watching, and hopefully you saw some of the other inks. Let me know what you're most excited about. Again, if you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching. Quantum is out.